I'm Bonnie Hacking, and I'm Program Manager here at the Entrepreneurship Centre in St Andrews Innovation. And I'm delighted to have with us today three fantastic panel speakers. We have Niki McKenzie, who's the Managing Director of Archangels. We have Kat Pohorecka, who owns her own business and also works at Edinburgh Innovation, and quite delighted to have Kat here. And then online we have Simone Jensen. She's an alumna of St Andrews. She graduated in 2023, and she is the founder and CEO of a company called Stealth, and she's coming to us from Silicon Valley, where she's currently based. So it won't come as any surprise to know that despite the growing number of women-led ventures, female founders continue to face unique challenges. That can be in accessing funding, it might be about mentorship, or it might be creating the networks that are going to help them to grow their business. A few statistics. So about 20% of UK businesses are founded by women, and about 3.5% of equity funding goes to female entrepreneurs. Less than 3% of venture capital funding goes to female-founded firms. And yet they contribute £116 billion to the UK economy every year. So, to start off, can I ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do?
So, Niki McKenzie, I'm Joint Managing Director at Archangels. Archangels is a very long-running syndicate of investors investing in very early-stage Scottish businesses. So when I say long-running, we've been going for over 30 years. That's a long time for an informal group of people to stay together. So we like to invest in early-stage businesses that are deep technology, so difficult to copy, often patented, something globally disruptive, something that should ultimately be changing the way that things are done in the world. And about half of the companies that we invest in come out of the Scottish universities, and other half, so people that come into us direct. So is that enough of an introduction just now? I'm just saying, involved in looking at new stuff coming in. We've got 20 companies in the portfolio at the moment, so oversee how they're doing, and then when we come to exit, I get involved in those deals as well when we sell the companies.
My name is Kat Pohorecka. I work at Edinburgh Innovation, student enterprise service for students at the University of Edinburgh. But I'm also a founder of my own startup, which is called Mude, and it's adaptive clothing startup for people who wear medical devices. So we create like base layer garments that allow people to act as a second skin and allow people who wear medical devices like insulin pumps, stoma bags, catheters to include it into their basically clothing much easier than the currently available options. And my background is actually in product design, and after graduating from Edinburgh Napier University, I went through a bit of a journey myself on learning how to be an entrepreneur. So I've done a lot of accelerators, incubators, programs, competitions, and kind of looking at it from a different point of view than just business.
Hey everyone, it's nice to be here. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Radical. We're building the first AI cancer doctor. So essentially what this means is we take multimodal clinical data on a patient, so their imaging, their family history, their genetics, their clinical notes, and then create a personalized cancer treatment plan. So a specific example is if you have colorectal cancer. Right now there are 3 different drugs you could be given, but right now doctors are kind of just guessing at random. But we've been able to build models which can personalize this treatment to an individual. We're working with some of the top hospitals in the US. They've luckily given us all their data for the first time. So training kind of the first foundational model for cancer. You can think of it of like ChatGPT, but for cancer on like a personalized level. And yeah, we're based in San Francisco. We're still a pretty early stage company, but we raised like a 5 million pre-seed last year. And like Bonnie said, I went to St Andrews. I actually started the company straight after graduation, but kind of was interested in entrepreneurship my whole time at the university. I built my first company when I was 18, also a student athlete, so love sports, and ended up graduating as the top overall graduate at St Andrews, so got the principal's medal for that. But yeah, I'm excited to be here today. I remember the Entrepreneurship Centre backed me for the very first startup I did back when I was 18. They gave me like my first £1,000 and I was like so excited by it back then. So yeah, grateful for what they did to me and excited to speak more.
Thanks, Simone. As Simone says, so there wasn't an entrepreneurship center when Simone started her journey. It was before the entrepreneurship center opened in 2021. But I know her since she was a very young St. Andrews student. So if I start with you, Simona, what inspired you to start your business? What challenges did you face in the early stages?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure. It kind of just happened. So I think part of it was that COVID happened in my first year of undergrad, which meant that everything shut down. So St Andrews sent us all home, which is quite sad. And I decided to just teach myself how to build apps instead because all my internships were cancelled. So I'd spend every single day of that summer coding, building a new product, whether it was like a copy of Facebook or like a WhatsApp messaging platform or like a weather app. And I eventually became really interested in learning about augmented reality, and started a startup through that. So the first startup I did was using augmented reality to like engage children in education. And yeah, I guess it kind of just happened because decided to teach myself like that new skill and was just like really curious about it. And then I ended up moving to California for a year during my undergrad to be at UCLA and kind of scaled it there as well. And then, yeah, throughout university, I didn't really do anything else other than startups. Like I've never actually had a job, which makes it pretty interesting now when I'm managing other people. I think the only job I ever had was doing like Uber Eats delivery riding in like St Andrews. So kind of all I did every single summer instead of doing internships was building companies. And I feel like lots of it is actually just like kind of going full send and like trying to not have a backup plan. I know lots of my friends were like, oh, like, well, you should really have this tech internship or something lined up. And I'm like, well, I feel like if you just prioritize the path, which has the highest rate of learning at every point, like you're kind of going to get there in the end. So then when I graduated, I knew I was going to start a company. I never even applied to any grad jobs. My parents were very, very upset about that. I remember they sat me down and had like serious conversations. They were like, Simona, please, please, you can get any job, just get a job. But I was like, no, I'm going to start a company. And I ended up joining an accelerator called Entrepreneur First in London, which this company then came out of. And yeah, in terms of challenges along the way, there's been so many. I feel like stuff always looks so pretty from the outside. Like we ended up being quite like a hype Silicon Valley company and like stuff looks very cool and like the funding was quick and all that. But yeah, on the inside it was a complete mess. Like in the first company I built during undergrad, I just like it was a great learning experience, but I just like was wrong about many fundamental things. Like one example was I really didn't build the right team initially. So I had the completely wrong mindset. I was like, oh, I need a software engineer. I'm just going to go like find someone at university who can like build an app. It was kind of like almost scarcity mindset of like, I need someone, I'm just going to find someone. But now whenever I like work with people or bring people on the team, I want to make sure like they are the most exceptional person and that I feel very grateful to work with them. But that was a big challenge of the first company. Like I just didn't really assemble the right team. So that was ultimately what like made that company not be successful in the end. And in terms of the one I'm building now, it was so messy at the beginning. I kept speaking to Keith and Bonnie like after graduation, so they know a bit of the ups and downs. But I did the accelerator entrepreneur first. They initially didn't fund me. They made me go find co-founders. I found co-founders. I've since broken up with all my co-founders, and now I'm a solo founder. Going through the process of firing co-founders is an interesting one. I also moved to the US by myself and I didn't know anyone out here. So that was a tricky process to kind of build that network. I also just needed to have more conviction in myself and like communicate with conviction. So yeah, that was essentially many, many challenges. But I feel like I kind of just try to wake up with the mindset every day that I'm just gonna like do the best to learn as much as possible. And I feel like if you're learning faster than anyone and working like really hard, like you'll kind of figure most of the challenges out in the end.
What's the driver behind Archangel members becoming angel investors? What are the kinds of things that the syndicate looks for when they're looking to invest?
Yeah, so that's a good kind of opening question, because we've 125 active investors, and if you're going to be in our syndicate, the way that it works, you kind of have to be investing. Otherwise, it's a kind of expensive annual dinner, I guess, right? So they're turning up wanting to be engaged. And the thing that they're most excited about, and the reason that they come in, is because they're really intellectually curious about what's going on with new technologies. So they want to learn all the time. They want to know what's happening out there in the world and be continually learning through that. So I think we're very fortunate in our office to see a lot of really market-leading, very potentially really disruptive technologies, and our members are seeing that and they're engaging with it and want to be a part of it. And it's a very high-risk journey, obviously lots of failures in the portfolio, but they understand that when they come in. So it's about working with teams who understand a market space, have worked in that space, understand the potential there, can build good products. Exactly what Simone was saying about, and hopefully have got a good team round about them. So that's what the members are looking for. Exciting opportunities at the end of the day, and particularly things that are in Scotland.
And Kat, if I can just ask you, so in your experience, what unique challenges do female founders face? And what does your program at Edinburgh, how does it try to address those?
So I would say that definitely one of the biggest challenges is lack of representation when it comes to female entrepreneurs. So, and it's anywhere from, you know, what we learn to consider as businessmen and people of business. It's usually very certain type of white man in a suit with, you know, a briefcase of cash. And I think that a lot of that is like debunking this. But I think that there is still a lot of issues when it comes to like enterprise education program per se as well, because I don't think that we are doing it right, what we are doing yet. We are learning, definitely, because it is definitely being a female entrepreneur. I think that you usually, from what I notice as well, working with female entrepreneurs, is you juggle a lot of things at the same time, whether it's care responsibilities, whether it's full-time job, whether it's you know, your own startup on top of all of this. I think that when it comes to the programs at Edinburgh Innovations, a very, very important thing is learning from feedback for us. So for the last couple of years, we've had a program called Power Her Up, which is an accelerator for female entrepreneurs who already have an idea and they are at like early stage of developing it. So they're committed to trying to turn it into a business. And that program went through huge transformations over the last 4 years. This year we had something completely different. Again, we gathered feedback. We are going to implement it. And probably next year it will be different again. Because I think that also just the students are changing and, you know, economic situation also impacts them. So it's anything from making more inclusive by making sure that they can, for example, bring kids over to the sessions when it comes to female entrepreneurs. But also just making sure that the sessions are also delivered by women. So we usually try to get experts who are female in a certain topic, whether it's marketing, branding, whether it's funding and like learning more about raising investment. That's why we had Elizabeth Perry from Accelerator. So it's about raising this representation so that female entrepreneurs learn that it is a viable route and that other women are doing this. But I think that, you know, when you mentioned investment as well, like I had an opportunity to work for a little bit for a startup where I also pitched for investment in a room full of white men. It doesn't feel great. You don't feel like you're your words are actually penetrating anyone there, no matter how hard you try. So there's a lot of this. That's just one of the biggest things.
So following on from the point that Kat just raised, Simone, you mentioned that you've recently raised nearly $5 million in investment. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience as a female founder?
Yeah, it was I actually quite enjoyed the experience-ish. Like it was definitely very hectic. And it's like definitely one of those experiences which like again, like I mentioned before, always looks very pretty from the outside, but definitely doesn't feel like it on the inside. So we ended up raising like 5 million pre-seed. It was led by Coastal Ventures, which is a top firm in Silicon Valley. It was an oversubscribed round and it was done within 2.5 weeks. So it was like pretty quick. So yeah, all those things sound good, but it was so hectic on the inside. Like, oh my God, like that was genuinely like one of the most intense periods of my life. And I think obviously if you look at the statistics for like female founders raising, there is a big difference. But if I'm being like completely honest, I didn't really notice it that much. And like maybe that's because I just wasn't paying attention to it. But I feel like what I tried to focus on was just like all the things I could control, because I feel like I essentially have a lot of agency to change many things during the process, which can improve the outcomes more than just like being male or female, like the way I pitch or like the way I present my company or like the way I run the process even. So I just try to just really focus on like all of those things. I think there are a few things that like female founders tend to maybe do a bit more. Like I know I use a lot of filler words. I say like all the time and things like that. And yeah, females tend to like usually have a higher tendency to say things like that. Same with like saying crazy ambitious things. Like males are obviously more likely to say like I'm gonna build the biggest company in the world, but like that doesn't mean you can't just say it like yourself too. So I would just say those things and speak in that way, just because you do have the power to like change that, although it may not be your natural instinct to say it. You can just say it in those processes. So that's what I tried to like focus on. And then just really control the things you control. Like the key to the fundraise wasn't necessarily being like male or female. It was just running like a really, really tight, competitive, like hypey process. So we just met with 60 to 70 investors in a 1 week period. So I had like 10 to 15 pitches a day for like a week. And then just played everyone off each other and got lots of people to commit money and then picked the right ones. So yeah, I guess maybe that helps as well, speaking to like a lot of people, because you just have to find the people who like believe in you and like back you as a person. And ultimately at the end of the day, that's a numbers game. Like you have to probably get like at least 50 no's at first. So yeah, kind of summarize, I acknowledge there's a difference in the statistics, and like that is like obviously true, like it's hard data, but I just felt like there was just so much I could control and I could change and I can get better at. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on that because I can't really change my gender during the fundraise, really.
I think that's fascinating and really encouraging, because I think in our space, I would say, so if I looked at our portfolio, we've got 20 companies, 6 of those are female led. Before last week, right, our last 3 out of 5 deals female led. So these are deep tech, science, software, life sciences companies. Genuinely, I don't think out of our membership and investors blinked slightly about whether it was a male or female running those businesses. I just had no sense of that at all. Exactly to Simone's point, people were pitching really smart businesses really well. So our members were interested in what's the addressable market, how clever is your product, how good is your team, do you understand where your gaps are, what we need to fill, and again, we had oversubscribed rounds. Now, the reason I'm saying till last week we signed 2 new deals, both of them male, the sort of led, great, so, but still kind of, I think, reasonable stats. Our office, 6 of us in the team, 4 female, 2 male. I don't know whether that makes a difference or not. But I think Simone's right. You have to pitch your best to your ability with your skill set, with as much prep and mentoring and input and find the right investor group that you're a good fit for. So you need to do your research. Exactly. We would say to people, you need to be out speaking to dozens of investors, but find the ones that you're a good fit for. So find what we're looking for. And then I think kind of gender comes less into it, but that's our experience. Does that make sense?
Would you recommend 10 pitches a day?
Well, what I do say when our company, so we're typically doing the pre-seed and the seed rounds, and then we're usually bringing in co-investors as we go further down the journey. And mostly at the moment, if you're looking for co-investment, you would be speaking to 100 investor groups. Sorry, to get, meetings with 50, to go, and get into 20, get term sheets from 3, 5 at the end of the day if you're lucky. And you just need to be efficient about it and use your network so you're not wasting time with people who are just not a fit, right? You need to shortcut the way to find the right fit so that you're not wasting your time. Yeah.
Kat, hearing that, is there any ways, so you mentioned the Power Her Up program and some other things, are there any other ways that kind of tailored support that you provide for female founders?
I would say that mostly we focus on delivery of programs that deliver skills. With that, also in previous years came funding, specifically allocated to help with any sort of like cost of living or care or whatever else it was. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I think that like aside from Power Her Up and then signposting people to also organizations from outside of the university, like Accelerate Her and Ventures, etc. We very recently signed the Pathways Pledge, but that's still through the works at the moment, and so we'll see how it shapes up. But yeah, I think that we are at the beginning of this journey of kind of investing more into growing the female entrepreneurship.
Does the audience have any questions? I've got several pages, but it's not my discussion, it's our discussion.
I think Simone's presentation there about presenting to 100 companies in a week is quite inspiring, because that's actually what you need to go out and do. As Niki's touched on, you just need to go out and you need to hit them all as quick as you can and as hard as you can. And that's probably why you generated that frenzy around the investment, because there was an opportunity there that investors started to see, well, if I don't get in now, maybe I'm going to miss my opportunity. And I think maybe in Scotland, that's where we lack that number of potential investors that we can go out and speak to and generate that investment frenzy. And it comes back to the valuations then that you're putting on your company.
So can I chip in, Bonnie? I think the good news is, since COVID, there are significantly more investors coming into Scotland. And it was partly because COVID meant people started doing stuff online and they go, oh, cool, it turns out there's lots of good companies out there right across the UK. Wow, I can actually access them. And then once those investors from down south have come in and made one investment, suddenly they're in Scotland for a board meeting. Oh, let's find out what else is going on here. So genuinely, I think over the last 2-3 years, the numbers of people that are coming in significantly increased. I've been at Archangel for 14 years. It's a very, very different landscape now than it was at the start. So I think there's great opportunities. And also, because of the maturing of this ecosystem and the number of things that are going on, people are being encouraged. You should go to London, right? Seriously, get on a plane, go and do 10 pitches in a day. I mean, I'm going to pitch Archangels in May to a number of VCs. So you just got to do it and reach out and take your business idea and travel. And again, that was the sort of thing that people didn't really do that. Now you go to London, like get to your hundreds.
If I can add to that as well, like as I mentioned in the very beginning, like women usually handle a lot of different things at the same time. So I would also argue that, doing 10 pitches a day and taking a plane to travel to London for a week is not possible. It's just not possible and viable. So, and again, I think it plays a little bit into that culture of, we are like an old kind of version of being an entrepreneur, that this is what is required for you to succeed. But what if your life and your circumstances just don't allow for that? Does it mean that you shouldn't be given a chance?
No, go do it on Zoom, do it on screen, rate the tech, do one a week. Yeah, do it in whatever way that you can make that work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was 18 and like tried to raise from VCs, I had it like all wrong. Oh my God. Like I look back now and I'm like, damn, that's so embarrassing. Like what was I doing? Like I just had to I think part of it is I just didn't know. Like I didn't know how you like run a competitive process in Silicon Valley or London. Because I think those are kind of well, London's even hard to do it in. I think Silicon Valley is the only place you can really run like a competitive process like that. And I think back when I was 18, like I just hadn't had any exposure to that, and I had no idea that was even a possibility. So I think a big part of it back then would just been like had knowing more about how to do that and create that. Because yeah, when I was 18, I remember I would speak to VCs and I would get so excited. I was like, oh my God, this investor is like giving me like 20 minutes of their time. This is crazy. I would like prepare and like stress for it like so much. And like obviously they were never gonna give me money. It was kind of just relationship building for maybe later down the line. But I kind of had the mindset of like, oh, I'm so grateful that they're taking time to speak with me. And I feel like now, like you kind of just have to flip it, and it's like, no, like they should be grateful to speak with me, you know? So I think back when I was 18, like I didn't even know it was a possibility to do this, or that you could speak to 10 to 15 investors like a day, because you do need to do that. And there are many ways you can do that and build your network and reach out to people and like set those calls up on Zoom. It doesn't need to be in person. And I think another part of like making it normal to go do like 100 pitches in a week, I think is just normalizing the fact that like most people are going to say no, and like that's okay. Like we got probably at least 50 no's, or more than that. Definitely more than that. Well, most people don't even get back to you. And that like, yeah, you're going to wake up every single morning with like 5 rejection emails at least. And that's just going to be like how you start your day. But like, that is just like the part of the process. Like even the most successful companies in the world have gone through that exact like part of like getting turned down at almost every single investor. So I think it's just acknowledging that is part of it. And then I think another big change I made from when I was like 18 to like the recent fundraise was kind of thinking of it more as like a game now. Like a game you just have to like win. And there are many strategies you can like use for that. So everything from like how you set up the meetings and how you like stage them, and like you talk to worst VCs first and build up to the top VCs and like play them off against each other. And like when you have a term sheet, you obviously just like tell everyone and be like, well, you have 24 hours, like are you in or not? And kind of like being more bold and like kind of building that like FOMO-ish. So I think it's kind of like shifting the mindset of like, oh my God, I'm so lucky to speak to this investor, to like, no, like I'm the scarce asset here of like backing like an exceptional founder. They should be grateful to speak with me, and I'm just gonna play a game with it and have fun with it. Not that it actually will be fun, it will be like very, very stressful. But I think it's helpful to like shift that mindset. And then just obviously have the expectation that like most people are going to say no. So yeah, like lots of stuff has like changed along the way since I was 18. And I think just exposure helps a lot. Just like seeing people do it and like knowing that it's possible.
Any questions from anyone else?
My question really to Simone is how much research did you do before you actually went round and pitched to your 100 or so investors?
Yeah, so what we did is we made a list of like 500 VCs and had like a spreadsheet. And then before I made that list, essentially what I did is yeah, I agree. I don't really like wasting time. So I was like, okay, like I know other healthcare AI founders who have like fundraised in the past, like a year ago. So I just got them to give me their investor tracker and spreadsheet, and then just kind of copied and pasted most of them. Like I would obviously make sure like of all those like 500 on the list, like you go to Crunchbase for all of them. You make sure that they've ideally raised a fund in the last couple of years, that they're actively deploying, that they've done pre-seed and seed investments, that they've led the investments. All that information is ready, like usually publicly available. So for every fund we'd spoken to, like I knew how big their fund was, how actively they were deploying, how quick their process was. And I'd also researched all their portfolio companies to make sure like they kind of aligned with our interest. And like whenever we send out the intro emails to people, I would have like included like a personalized message about the fund, about why I think they're a good fit. So I did most of it myself, and then I also like gave it to my team because I was like, this is really boring work, like having to type all of them in on Crunchbase. So yeah, we did a lot of research just to make sure they were the right stage and actually do like pre-seed and seed, because like lots of the times it will be like a Series A fund and it's like, oh, we just want to get in early and build the connection, which is a waste of my time. So yeah, most of them were like AI healthcare focused. And then the way we got all the intros was I sent that spreadsheet out to like everyone I'd ever met in my life in Silicon Valley. So when I came out here at first, I just went to like every single event I could possibly go to, like messaged, like cold DM so many people, founders and early stage ahead, and then sent it to all of them, and they like intro to a couple of people each. But it was interesting actually. So one of the funds who actually ended up giving us money, like I did my research on them and I was like, they have no interest in investing at all. So this fund had like never ever done a healthcare investment or anything related to health. They were more like yeah, like completely different thesis. And I didn't even schedule this call. Like this call was just like put in my calendar, and I was like, okay, fine, like I'll show up to it. And then within like 48 hours of that first call, they'd given us like 1.5 million term sheet and we're ready to wire the money. And I was like, huh? Like this is a bit weird. Like they weren't even on the list of funds that I did so much research for. But I think that one was kind of just down to like people just believe in people and like what you're going to achieve in your life. So like yeah, the research was really important for us, and it saved us a lot of time for not speaking to people who was like going to be a waste of our time. But then yeah, occasionally like random stuff like that happens. And I love him. He's great. Yeah, he actually moved from London to Silicon Valley and started his own fund out there. So like we get along really well. But I was definitely not expecting it. He was not on the list of 500 funds.
So, Niki, you mentioned earlier that you've been with Archangels for 14 years and you've seen a lot of changes. So, what are the most significant changes you think you've seen in the landscape?
So I talked a little bit while ago about the ecosystem maturing, and that is very much about programs and events and all of this sort of thing going on. And it's great because there's a whole raft of activities and gatherings and events that you can go to and get trained up. So exactly your question earlier about how confident are people pitching? You know, there are lots of support networks and events around to go there. So you need to find the one that you like, that works for your time of day, whatever your circumstances are. And also that the people on there are people that you resonate with and you think you can get access to. So I see all of that maturing and lots of good stuff happening out of that. I see in the portfolio companies, I see a maturing of the people that are on the boards. So I think it's really important to have, all of our companies have boards of people around about them and often advisory groups. And the quality of the individuals that are supporting the companies now, much better than we had in the past. Often they're people that are being recycled from exited companies. They're coming back around and giving that experience in there. So I would be really bold, any entrepreneurs, be really bold as to what your ask is and who you can go out to ask to say, can you help me with my business? People shouldn't be scared of that. You should have a pitch about what your ask is and why you specifically want those people. But folk are happy to help. And I just think that whole thing of getting really good quality people around about you, which can shortcut you, save you making mistakes, and get you kind of further up the journey. I think those are a couple of things that I would call out on that. So, yeah, that makes sense.
So obviously this is a connected network event, and we have a very big mix of different types of people here, different roles. And so I'm quite interested in what are the views of the panel in terms of how can people within the ecosystem actually more effectively support female founders?
I think it's about more actually involving students in those sort of conversations and events, because we very often talk about them. We do gather feedback, and we do, every program there's feedback form and we look at the feedback. But I actually, so that's something that I did in my practice as a designer and as a founder of an adaptive clothing brand, but I actually co-created my designs, and I think that it's maybe an interesting possibility to experiment with co-creating programs that with female founders. Plus, I would say this with female entrepreneurship, like I'm really glad that this is becoming something that there is a lot more programs and we pay attention to. But I believe that's just the first step to inclusive entrepreneurship, because again, if we look more into intersectionality, so we look at entrepreneurs with disabilities, for example, with any sort of challenges such as neurodivergency. We know and we start to learn about it that, for example, a lot of neurodivergent people do have the great entrepreneurial qualities, but their brains work in a different way. And I don't mean to expose myself here, but I am neurodivergent, and as much as with my journey through all of this, through becoming an entrepreneur, was completely different to Simone's. I actually love hearing about your journey because it's just like fire and water, for me, because I'm on a completely opposite spectrum. I'm a person who's very cautious about taking risk, who's overthinking every single decision many times. In many areas, it works great, but in many areas, it's an obstacle. And again, for me, just listening about having 10 pitches a day is just something that I physically can't do, because I would just end up having a panic attack at the end of the day and not being able to get help for 6 days. So I think that's why it's so important to focus on those maybe delivering smaller programs, more dedicated programs. I know that's a logistical nightmare to do that, and that we don't have funding to do that within the universities. But I also believe that there's a lot of repetition just across the sector about the programs that we deliver. And it becomes a little bit of a web, if you don't really know where to go. What if you go there? Will they, this is just my thinking, but what if I go to Accelerator? Will they be angry at Mint Ventures? It's stupid thinking, but there is a little bit of we are all kind of competing with each other as well. People get money there, you are happy for them, but maybe not exactly because you wanted that money. You compete about these things. And we repeat a lot of the programs, and we overlook a lot of smaller groups that need support, different sort of support.
So Nana, having had quite a long journey through a number of different accelerators, incubators, and different kinds of programs, what's your thought on how we can how the ecosystem can more effectively support founders?
Oh yeah, I've done so many accelerators, too many. I said I'm never gonna do an accelerator again in my life. They're great, but I definitely did too many during my undergrad. I think the thing I would probably do to encourage more females to get into entrepreneurship is probably just encourage them to be a bit more ambitious. And say slightly crazier things, and just encourage that you just essentially enable them to think that they have agency on that future. I feel sometimes the companies are seen as slightly safer. But I actually think the more ambitious the company is, the more likely it is to succeed, because you have the ability to attract talent in people, and if you can attract talent in people, you can do even better things. And I definitely didn't have that at the beginning. I wouldn't really say the most crazy things, and I would always kind of underpitch the company and say it in the least ambitious version instead of the most ambitious version. And I just someone sat me down, it was actually someone through at EF, and was Simona, no one's gonna back you if you speak like this. You just have to say the most crazy thing, and you have to say it with a completely straight face, you fully believe it. So I think just encouraging people to do that. And then I think also showing people examples of like how different people have been successful. Because I agree with what was just said. I think there are definitely different ways you can build a company, definitely different ways you can fundraise. And I think a big part which helped me was just kind of being exposed to people like a couple stages ahead on the journey and like seeing how they did it. Like maybe someone did like 100 pictures in a week, and then maybe someone else just went like more strategic with like angels they trusted and like built the business more organically. Like there are many different ways you can do it, and kind of just seeing all those different successes and then determining like what one you want to do and like what one suits you best. Because there isn't necessarily a right way, but being able to like have all of the options laid out and like kind of know what is possible is really helpful, because I didn't even know it was possible that you could do all these pictures and create all this hype and like get all this money like at the age of like 22, 23, when like you've never done anything, until you're exposed to like that actually that can just be the reality. And yeah, I needed someone to like sit me down and tell me to be more ambitious and be more crazy. So now whenever I pitch investors, I tell them I'm going to build the biggest company in the world. But it definitely wasn't like that at the beginning. So yeah, I'd say just encourage like the crazy ambition and like the belief that you can do it. And then like have really good examples of many different types of successes and like have that exposure. And accelerators are great, but there's a lot of them. I fell into the trap of doing too many, and there's like a lot of, they're all kind of pretty similar. And definitely during university, I was like kind of like on that accelerator grind. It was like one accelerator to the next to the next, and I was like, should have just coded more actually. But they're great, but I think there's a limit to how many you should do.
Yeah, I think I liked your fire and water chat, right? So I think what's important at the end of the day, you have to feel true to your business and your ambition and what you want to deliver. So my view would be is to get a small number of trusted advisor people round about you that take you on the journey and explain to you what's possible and can help open up those ways. But you have to find that journey that works for you. So Simone's clearly one journey, like with one gang of people doing one thing, and and others will do other journeys. In terms of to encourage, I think sometimes we end up thinking this is very, very hard, and you're saying this is really difficult. It's a really tough journey, and actually raising money, raising equity is a rare thing to do, right? Most people and it's quite often, I think in Scotland, it feels like over the last few years, it's a sort of dream thing. Everybody has to raise equity. Actually, it's only relevant for a small number of very fast growing or potential businesses. So calibrate that. Lots of it can be done organically or with other types of growth or other types, which is all good stuff. But if you're on that equity route, if I could encourage you to say, out of our companies in the portfolio, we sold a business a couple of years ago to Bayer Pharmaceutical. We sold our business before that to Intel. These are world-leading technologies coming out of Scotland with really smart people here that have gone on that journey, and that's feasible. And I think when you come away, sometimes you just think, oh my goodness, this is too difficult. It does exist and it does happen. You just need to get the right route and the right path and the right type of journey that you're on with the right advisors.
Just a quick question around, or observations around co-founding, insights into the benefits or disbenefits of having co-founders.
So I started on my own and was doing it on my own for a little bit. I also just wanted to try to like find my feet in all of the entrepreneurship, and it took me a long time to call myself entrepreneur. But I did find a co-founder at one point. Mostly it was related to the fact that I didn't feel like, even though I learned a lot about entrepreneurship, I didn't really feel like, doing financial forecasts and talking to potential investors is actually something that I feel particularly, interested in. I would much rather focus on the design side of things, which is my background. And although I love teaching entrepreneurship, I'd much rather myself focus in my business on what brings me joy. Even though, of course, like I still pitch and I still go to networking, etc. But one of the reasons was also that I, after graduating, I couldn't not work. So I always like throughout studies I worked. After studies I worked, then I found a full-time job, I worked, then I changed the job to another full-time job, and I'm still working full-time at the university because I just have to. So having a co-founder is beautiful in that sense that when you have so little time, you have another person who can pick up at different times of day.
Yep.
One big thing, I guess, would be at first when I was looking for a co-founder, I was looking for a mini me. And I was thinking, oh, mini me will be great because then I can just, explain everything without any words and they're just gonna get it. Like, that's the worst, I think, idea ever, now that I think about it. You need someone who will challenge you. And my co-founder challenges me all the time, and I hate him for it. But I'm doing the same to him, but that's why it works. And we have completely different sets of skills as well. I do have now business skills, but again, I focus on design, he focuses on that, and together we work as a team. But I'm a control freak, so it took me a long time to also just let go. Just let go and just let someone in. And I remember the first conversations as well I had with Archangel because I graduated from Napier and I had their support about me just being paranoid. It was like, what is going to happen? Like when he gets this idea, what do I tell him? What do I not tell him? Should I sign an NDA? What should I do? And overthinking in my head, something that I knew that at this point I can't do on my own. So it got to the point where I was like, either I scrap it or I get someone to help me.
Yeah, I've had so much experience with co-founders. Like, I obviously did Entrepreneur First straight after university, and like the whole thesis of Entrepreneur First is like they match you with a co-founder and then they fund you. So I did the whole program, didn't find a co-founder, mainly my own fault because I was very confused about what company I wanted to build. So I jumped from idea to idea. But eventually towards the end of that accelerator, I knew I wanted to work on this idea, but I didn't have a co-founder. So I went to go pitch to them as a solo founder. I was like, hey, I think I can do this by myself. Like, I really believe in this. Like, I would love for you to fund me anyway, even though I know you usually back teams. And they were like, yeah, no, that's not really what we do here. Like, we want you to have a co-founder. And they were like, well, we'll make a special deal for you. Like, we'll promise to fund you, like, once you find co-founders, and then you can build the company with us still. And I was like, okay, fine. I guess I can see where they're coming from. Their kind of like reasoning for like me having a co-founder was that I'd never worked in healthcare before. I'd never really done anything in this space. So they were like, we think it could be really helpful to like pair you with that experience. And I was like, okay, I see their logic. Like, I can see how that could make sense. So then I spent like 2 months trying to find a co-founder. I eventually found 2 co-founders. And then I'd only worked with them for like 3 weeks, and then we were given the initial funding. This was just like an initial 250K from Entrepreneur First. But yeah, that happened, now looking back, like far too quick. Like, you can't work with someone for 3 weeks and then get funding straight away. Like, that is not long enough. And part of it was because I just had the wrong mindset. I was like, oh, like, I'm like desperate for these guys to give me money. Like, I'm just gonna go find co-founders and then they'll fund me and stuff will be great. And like, now looking back, I'm like, no. Like, the decision of like who to have as a co-founder is just such like a huge decision. Like, you're gonna be working with that person for like the next 10 years at least, and going through like the most stressful periods. And like, yeah, I don't think you should get funding with some people like 3 weeks after meeting them. Not that people usually do that. I think this is more of like an edge case. So anyways, I had those 2 co-founders. We got that initial funding. We moved to San Francisco, fired the first one. So now we were down to 2. Then we did the fundraise, like the 5 million raise. Then after that, fired the next one. And that one was pretty interesting conversation. It was literally like 2 months post raising this huge round. I had to go tell all the investors that like I was firing my co-founder, which is a tricky conversation, but like I was actually surprised by like how well they took it. I was like so scared to tell them, but they were like, no, like we back your decision. We're glad you can be ruthless. We thought you were too nice anyway. And I was like, okay, sure. So now I'm a solo founder. And I think having a co-founder, I can definitely see the benefits to it. I think in theory, like if you have the right co-founder, it's better than being like a solo founder. But for me, like I just didn't find the right co-founder. Like I think the way I found those two people is like under time pressure just to get an investment, which isn't the right way. I think the reason why I made the decision to fire like the co-founder straight after the investment was just because I didn't think we were moving fast enough, and I didn't think he necessarily had like the emotional stability or like consistency to build a company in the long term and not like feel the ups and downs too much without being unproductive. So like I took that decision and now I'm a solo founder, and like I'm not looking for a co-founder like anytime soon. Like I don't feel like I need one right now. I feel like I am in a position where I can attract all the talent I need to attract, and kind of build that team around me. And like being a solo founder allows you to be a lot more generous with equity. Like now when I bring people onto the team, I can in theory give them like a couple % each, if not more even, which obviously you would never do if you had a co-founder. So like right now I'm just focused on building like a founding team around me, which I think can actually like be even stronger. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't do it the way I did it. Like firing co-founders is a messy process, legally complicated, and yeah, not that fun. But like I I'm glad that I'm a solo founder now, and I feel like confident in my ability to run it as a solo founder. But I do still think in theory, if you have the right co-founder, it's better than being a solo founder. I just think it's very, very rare to find that right co-founder.
Niki, from the investor's perspective, what's the thinking on co-founding?
Yeah, I don't really have a fixed view on it. I think it depends on the individuals, doesn't it? So it depends, yeah. And I think there are advantages that I can see with teams working together, but I think just being flexible about what's right at the right time, it's the right thing. You know, just whatever is appropriate for your team, I think. Like, yeah, no fixed views.
If I could say thank you so much to our panelists. It's been a pleasure to have you. Simone, we'll catch up later. There's a lot I want to kick your brains about, but thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you for taking the time to listen today. If you've been inspired by what you've heard, please head over to LinkedIn and search for The Connected Network. That's connected with a hyphen, and join our community of like-minded people. You can also access our resource centre and discussion threads under the Connected Group platform on the Community Lab. The Connected Network podcast has been made possible through funding and support from the Scottish Funding Council, the Challenges Group and Podplistic.